Welcome, dear learners. This topic on remembrance in religious activities has been developed based on selected references available. It has been divided into the following subtitles, namely a general outline for remembrance, introduction, view on religion and memory, role of myth for remembrance, myth in culture, various themes for remembrance for the discussion purpose. Shall we now go to the topic? Dear learners, as objectives of this lecture, learners will enable to understand the relation of religious activities and its role in remembrance, to discuss the various views of each religious group, also to understand the different concept of religion pertaining to remembrance. Remembrance is more than just an action in which human civilization participates. This event or action can be included in memory studies which have been called commemorative fever as according to Michel, obsession with memory according to Hussain, which is written in 1995, and passion for memory by Nora in 1996. The field of memory studies from a social and cultural perspective is still highly disorganized and fragmented according to Errol. Similarly, there is no easily available systematic or comprehensive overview of works dealing with religion and social memory. Given the scope and diversity of study in this topic, the endeavor would be difficult if not impossible. In short, the debate of religion and social memory is destined to be even more narrow and selective. Many problems are critical for our understanding of how religions remember, how religious communities are constituted through remembrance, and how they participate in the process of remembering. In addition, solidarity, reenactment, moment of silence, a memorial march, memorial days, memorial flowers, events, narratives, communities and tradition all play important roles in remembrance. View on religion and memory. Before going into the commemoration of religious acts, it is necessary to define religion. In the 19th century and 20th century, there was an intellectual discussion within religious studies about the priority of religion or ritual. Some thought that rituals came first in history according to Fraser, Robertson Smith, while others argued that myths came first according to Muller. These disputes were mostly based on fantastic reconstructions of the distant past, with the theoretical views dictating historical narratives. Archaeological data were excluded and only a few archaeologists took on the task of determining the origins of religion and ritual, according to Mitton and Tattersall. Religion and ritual have become more argumentative over time, with historical primacy no longer acting as a surrogate for importance. According to Glucon, he has written in 1942, the historical conflicts over myth and ritual, on the other hand, help to highlight a major difference in the study of religion and ritual that persists to this day. Although no competent academic in any area contends that one is entirely determinative of the other, different researchers tend to stress one over the other. These changes in emphasis result in significant differences in how religion and ritual are studied. Clifford Geertz identified religion as a system of symbols that acts to establish powerful, pervasive and long-lasting moods and motivations in men by formulating conceptions of a general order of existence and clothing these conceptions with such an aura of factuality that the moods and motivations seem uniquely realistic. These are three fundamental sociological conceptions of religion, according to Bourdieu, represented by three names: Marx, Weber and Durkheim. These theories appear to be mutually exclusive. As a result, situating oneself in the geometric space of diverse viewpoints, that is to say, in the position that allows perception of what can and cannot be viewed from each point of view, becomes necessary. What mental processes are left over from these three perspectives? Bourdieu explicitly expresses Durkheim's contribution, but Marx and Weber's appear less distinct. Bourdieu takes the idea from Durkheim's elementary forms of religious life that the sociology of religion must be considered a facet of the sociology of knowledge. Religion is a tool for communication as well as knowledge. It facilitates harmony between the meaning and science and the meaning of the world. Its function is the logical and social integration of collective representations, specifically religious forms of classical citation. Weber's contribution to religious sociology is significant because it creates the framework for moving beyond the empty option of religious subjectivism and unmediated Marxist reductionism. Weber also proposed that the sociology of religion is a subset of the sociology of power, and that mythic discourse must be linked to the religious goals of those who create, disseminate and receive it. The specialized religious bodies, the clerics who form the backbone of the religious fields, relative autonomy have a historical genesis. These religious experts have devised methods for acquiring a monopoly on hierarchic constraint and salvation commodities. As a result, the religious field appears as a comprehensive system of positions held by religious agents. Their objective, competitive relationship or their transactions. Finally, Bourdieu appears to retain Marx's notion of ideology as a transfiguration of social rapports into supernatural rapports, therefore inscribed in the essence of things and justified by them. From this vantage point, religion serves the political purpose of maintaining social order. Religious traditions often provide an explanation for the role death plays in life. In some traditions, death is explained as a door or passage to another life, either an eternal one or a reincarnated one on earth. Other religions see death as a transition from mortality to immortality. It is also indeed one to know how each religious denomination looks this ritual. Let us look into deeper one. Let us start with Hinduism. After the funeral, many families celebrate the life of the person who died for 12 or 13 days. A big meal is made to show respect and gratitude for the life of the person who has died. Tradition says that on the 12th day, the soul goes through a spirit world to the land of the ancestors. This is why the feast is held at this time. Now, Buddhism has a lot of different sects or practices which may be different from one another. Life and death are often seen by Buddhists as part of a circle called samara. Reincarnations will happen based on a person's actions in one cycle and a summary of all of their past lives. Most Buddhists believe that the best way to reach enlightenment and happiness is to live a good life so that the soul can be freed from samsara. Islam, Shia and Sunni, the two main groups within Islam, have very different beliefs and practices about most things, including life and death. Islam thinks that there is a future where people go based on how good while they were alive on earth. People believe that the best thing a person can do is to die for Allah. In Judaism, there are different stages of observance in Judaism, from traditional or orthodox to conservative, reformistic or reconstructionist. In Judaism, the funeral and burial usually happen within 24 hours of the death, but there can be exemptions so that people who are moving can be there. Now, the Christianity says that death is the time when a person moves from physical world to the spiritual world. The Christian faith also says that the souls of the dead can live in three places after the death: heaven, hell or purgatory. Now we will move into the next subheading, role of myth for the remembrance. Myths of memory and forgetting. Some North American medicine men say that they can remember their lives before they were born. Their myths say that most people lose these kinds of memories. All ancient societies have a hierarchy and all of them have similar stories about memory and forgetting. Not everyone can get the same basic understanding of the world which goes beyond normal consciousness. Collective memories is one way that myths of memory can show up. In South America, the Yaruaras lived such simple lives that they didn't know how to farm or raise animals. They were one of many groups that, as modern Western culture spread, gave up fighting for their own social and cultural identity, blended into a more complex society. As soon as the Yaruras stopped fighting to keep their identity, they said they wanted to go back to the Great Mother who ruled the land of the dead and was ready for them in her paradise. Memory and loss are important parts of many cultures' mythologies. In cultures that believe in rebirth or reincarnation, they are very important. Some people have said they remember past lives, and some, like the Buddha, were the very first. In many Indian stories, the veil of Maya, which means illusion, keeps a man from remembering his real origin and goal. Shankara, an ancient Indian philosopher, and Plato both used images of forgetting and remembering to talk about the supreme calling of the thinker and how hard it is to live up to that calling. Other rituals help people remember that their ancestors did important things that led to the way things are now. Ritualized social structures like India's caste system keep a complicated set of differences in place, and religious ideas like astrology help people think of spheres of power that control all members of a class, whether they are gods, planets, animals, plants, minerals or people. How myth is seen in a culture. Sigmund Freud was one of the most well-known psychologists who studied myths. Freud wrote about the Oedipus complex in his book The Interpretation of Dreams, which came out in 1999. He defined it as the male children's hidden desire for his mother and the same desire to replace his father, which means the Electra complex was the same thing for women. Freud said that this phenomenon could be found in dreams, stories, fairy tales, folk tales, and even in jokes. Freud later wrote Totem and Taboo, very important book, which was published in 1913, the first edition, in which he said that stories were the twisted hopes of whole societies. He also thought that the Oedipus complex was a memory of a real event that happened in the primal Hode, when boys who were mistreated by their father rebelled, drove him away or killed him, and took his wives for themselves. Freud thought that this was because people in later generation felt bad about doing it. Freud's research is important for the study of myths because he thought that the formation of mythic ideas had nothing to do with societal history. Freud's study of the mind, on the other hand, suggested an independent cross-historical mechanism based on a very individualistic biological view of people. Critics have pointed out problems with explaining stories in terms of single theme and the repression of conscious ideas. The next scholar, Swiss psychoanalyst Carl Jung, was also a theorist like Freud. Jung was affected by the philological thinking of the French philosopher Lucien Levy-Bruhl. His idea was about a way of thinking that was common among ancient humans and is still common among so-called primitives. In this way of thinking, people are said to have a mystical participation with the things they think about instead of separating subject and object. Jung's theory of the collective unconscious, which has some similarities to Levy-Bruhl theory, let him see where magical images came from in a more positive and creative way than Freud did. Jung came up with an idea about archetypes, the various themes for the remembrance. This theme is clearly found in all religious denominations. Memory plays a key role in all ritual and myth. Many hymns and laments call to mind God's past acts of deliverance. Such reminders build confidence in God. Let us now have a look some of the key factors within that themes. The first one is reenactment. Myth and ritual are two parts of all faith activities that go together. When it comes to stories and reenactment routines, it is especially troubling that the text now uses the word myth in a slightly different way than it did when we looked at what myths do earlier in the course. Rituals of reenactment are simply acts, words, and songs that tell the most important stories of a religion again. In Christianity, the most important story is the one about Jesus of Nazareth's life, death, and resurrection. In Judaism, the most important story is Passover story, which is about how God saved Israel from slavery in Egypt. The stories of Abraham and Muhammad are the most important ones in Islam. In every religious practices, important stories are retold or acted out in a way that helps people feel closer to the holy event. As we can see, reenactment ceremonies are based on an event that is told in a holy story. A ceremony is based on what happened in the first place. In ritual studies, the first event is called the template. Some people say that the ceremony is a reenactment of the original event, and it is clear that actions that take place are meant to do this. This is called mimesis, copying or reenactment by people who study rituals. So the Passover is a reenactment of the Exodus from Egypt. The Eucharist is a reenactment of meal Jesus ate with his followers the night before he died, and the Hajj is reenactment of different events from the lives of Muhammad and Abraham. The another important thing is psychological comfort with the remembrance. Folk belief and traditions can give people comfort and support on a mental level. They give people a sense of peace, comfort, and purpose in their lives and give them hope and motivation when things are hard. Rituals and religious practices help people connect with the divine and feel spiritual power. This gives them a sense of comfort and a sense of being a part of something bigger than themselves. People often find comfort, support, and a sense of belonging through their folk religion. Folk religions, practices, and customs can also give people a sense of stability and continuity, which can be comforting and reassuring in a world that is always changing. They can also help people deal with their feelings and find peace after a loss or time of sadness. The another connection with the spiritual thing is folk religion and traditions are all ways to connect with the spiritual world and feel the power of spiritual world. Through religious routines and rituals, people can strengthen their link to the divine and feel a sense of transcendence and spiritual connections. Particularly in folk religion, traditions and religious practices often interact with the spiritual world. This lets people connect with their relatives, nature, and other spiritual beings. They give people a sense of transcendence and spiritual link and let them feel the power and presence of divine in their lives. Folk religion and traditions always give people a sense of community and support by bringing them together with others who share their views and giving them a sense of belonging and connections. People can feel more spiritually connected and a part of a group when they share religious practices and rituals. This helps to build a feeling of spiritual connection and unity. Dear learners, so far we have discussed the core idea of remembrance of religious activities with the themes which have been divided into the following as general outline: remembrance, view on religion and memory, role of myth for remembrance, myth in culture, and as rightly we pointed out, various themes for the remembrance. It is an approach which basically studies the sociology of religion for the deeper understanding. To uphold that, it is believed that this idea, what we have discussed rightly, would certainly help in the study of religion. I hope you all must have enjoyed the session and it may have enriched the knowledge on remembrance in religious activities. Dear learners, we will meet with another schedule. Thank you. All the best.